Today is Halloween, but it's also Mrs. Smith's last day here at Byram.
She's retiring, and we wanted to show the impact she made on the students, teachers, and staff.
Smith, how enthusiastic she was about math and how she always danced and everything, even when the students were in a bad mood, she was always like happy and positive. Bye, Mrs. Smith.
Going to her extra help classes.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
She helped me
I
out a
only
lot.
went to one, but that was fun.
She usually helped me out a lot. Her checkpoints.
Well, I have a different relationship with Mrs. Smith than some of the other staff because I actually worked 2 summers with Mrs. Smith at camp. So my favorite memory is coming across Mrs. Smith working up at Bonfire, completely covered in sweat, covered in ash, and trying to cook over in a bonfire. So just imagine that. Yes, it is as entertaining as you think it is. I am going to miss hearing her from the beginning of the hallway while her classroom was all the way down at the end of the hallway. Just knowing that she was always there.
When I left the room and she screamed at me and told me that it was on like Donkey Kong, I was hearing her voice in the hallway.
So my favorite memory of Mrs. Smith, there are so many to mention, but my most favorite memory will be when she helped me plan my daughter's shower. She was such a help to me, I'll never ever forget it. And what I'll miss most is the way we used to laugh. We laughed together like nobody's business. So
I remember, so I was like pre-algebra. So I was going to extra help like after school, and like she would just walk through problems. It was really fun. I remember one time, my mom thought the time was like half an hour before than it was supposed to be. So I remember me and Mrs. Smith were like waiting outside on the blacktop for like just like 15 minutes, just talking about like stuff. Mrs. Smith is just like a nice person, and like when I see her on the hallway, it's just like nice to say hi, because she's always nice, and I don't know, she's like warm, and she's like nice to be around.
So I would say a favorite memory with Mrs. Smith would have to be the many trips that we took to Washington, D.C. We had a lot of great laughs and things that I'll just never forget. I will miss our coffee chats. I will miss you being a go-to person whenever I need to vent and talk to somebody.
My favorite memory of Mrs. Smith was when she read us the Pi Day book. I'm gonna miss her positive attitude.
My favorite memory of Mrs. Smith was when I was her in-class support teacher when she was in open space, and I brought I think my first seeing eye puppy here to school named Edie, a little chocolate lab, and she was this big, and she had an accident in her class, number 2. And I was like trying to clean it up quick, but the smell was too much for it. So, but she was a good sport about it, and she was great, and she was always good with my puppies. I'm gonna miss her happiness, her smile, and I don't know, I'm just gonna miss her.
My favorite Mrs. Smith memory was her bullying me when we did Dimension U. Her humor, she was really funny.
Well, my favorite Mrs. Smith memory is, well, a few things. She's pretty unforgettable. All of my time co-teaching with her, I really enjoyed every single minute of that, and nobody will ever be able to forget her dance moves and her singing voice as she comes down the 7th grade hallway. I will miss all of that I just mentioned. Mrs. Smith is a wonderful person.
Just how she would always be the most kind and fun math teacher I've ever had. I'm going to miss her good times in her classroom, all the smiles that she brings, and the caring opportunities that she brought.
My first year coming down to her during my prep each period and getting to work on her on creating activity lists, creating skills checks, and kind of getting to collaborate together, even though we didn't teach the same class. We never got to work in the same classroom together, but we got to work on a lot of things together, which was really fun. I'm gonna miss most her energy, her personality, and her attitude. Mrs. Smith is one of the most confident people I've ever met. She always knows that she's doing the right thing, and she empowers other people to also have that confidence. And as a new teacher to Byram, who she took under her wing 6 years ago, I really appreciate that, and I'm gonna miss that a lot.
My favorite memory of Mrs. Smith is when she fell on the floor from when Nevaeh kept on answering all the questions wrong. I'm gonna miss her so badly. She was so enthusiastic. I loved her.
My favorite memory of Mrs. Smith over the past 29, 30 years would be going to her house and trying to wallpaper her kitchen. And it turned out good, but it was It was pretty funny. I'm gonna miss Kathy because she always lights up a room and she's always helpful and kind, and I'm very good friends with her mom and her, and we go out to dinner, so we'll be going out to dinner.
I remember that this happened like multiple times. Like somebody would say something and she would reply and like and it was always really funny. I remember every morning she would be on the side when we were walking into school from the buses and she would say hi to everybody.
I am going to miss Mrs. Smith the most for her laughter in the hallway, her great sense of humor, and how she always brings everybody onto a better level. One of my favorite memories of Mrs. Smith is her dancing in the hallway with morning music playing.
My favorite memory of Mrs. Smith is when her screaming Hannah Montana.
Favorite memory of Mrs. Smith, let's see, there's so many. I mean, teaching, we had a time where there was a teacher named Miss Oli. Her and I had to dress up as these little fairies with our wings for Halloween. Like, she made Halloween fun because, you know, I can't stand Halloween. There's time when we did Are You Smarter? That is 6th grader. There's times when we hung out at her barbecue at her house. So I have many fond memories of Mrs. Smith. And the thing I'm going to miss most is how she makes me laugh and happy as she cheerleads through the hallway and sings and dances. So
Yelled at me because I didn't do my eye ready. She was very helpful and supportive.
I love when I first came to work here and the music would be playing in the halls and she would be dancing her face off at the end of the hall, just loving whatever song it was. I mean, if it was Madonna, forget about it. But she would be just jamming, and it was just so much fun to see, and it just set the tone for the day. So you keep dancing, my dear. Love ya. She's a school leader. She doesn't take any nonsense, but still knows how to have fun throughout, and yeah, that will be missed.
I like Mrs. Smith's stories. She always used to tell stories in class. It's Mrs. Smith's, probably her lessons. Her lessons were very easy to understand.
Serving as the union vice president while I was president together. Her dancing in the halls every morning to all the music.
My favorite memory is probably, I don't know, like she would always like greet us in the morning, and she's like very nice. Just her always being around the school, because she would always like just say hi and be nice.
My favorite memory of Mrs. Smith would be when she's dancing in the hallways before the kids come into class. She's had, I believe, all 3 of my kids, so I'm really going to miss seeing her around here and being her substitute.
Probably all of the funny nicknames she'd call us, like the sassy 7th graders, and I'm gonna miss most how she like made class so much fun, and since she was the first teacher I saw in the morning, how she just made my day every day.
Smith was always is such a positive force, and with the Smile Squad and, you know, just literally going out of her way to try to make her coworkers smile and have a good time. I mean, I honestly, like, I love sharing a homeroom with her the last year or two, just because that was more time for us to get to hang out together and talk and get to know each other. And yeah, she's just a bundle of smiles, and it's definitely a presence that will be missed moving forward.
Probably like on one of the first days of school when she kept going, "Girl, don't play no games," and she kept calling us the sassy 7th graders. I'm gonna miss like how like good of a teacher she was and like her positive attitude.
My favorite memory with Mrs. Smith is going to Washington, D.C. and her enthusiasm on the trip. She loves the trip. She's a fan favorite on the trip, so that's one of my favorite memories of her. And I'm going to miss Mrs. Smith and just the expertise that she provides all of our students and staff. She's been here for a long time, and she will be a tremendous loss.
My memory of Mrs. Smith was when she read us that pie book and she told us about the dragon named Pi. Love that she's very positive in life and that she helped me through a lot of my assignments.
My favorite memory about Mrs. Smith, there's a lot of them, but I think the most recent one is back in June we got to spend 3 days together down in Washington, D.C. And that was my first trip, and Mrs. Smith just made it so memorable for me. and so smooth with all the students, and I couldn't thank her enough for how well she taught me how to do that trip and how she handled herself on that. What I'm going to miss most is Mrs. Smith's jovial personality and banter back and forth in the building. I think she really brings a lighter side to school and to the teaching profession, and it just lifts everybody up. So that's one of the things I'm going to miss most about her.
My favorite memory of Mrs. Smith was when she put Eduardo at the end of the year on the board, and it was just a great moment because she saw me playing with Eduardo, my toy eraser, and she decided to put him on the whiteboard. Like, what could be better than that? I'm gonna miss just like seeing her. He's always so fun to hang around. I love you, Mrs. Smith. I'm gonna miss you.
Hi, everybody. Oh boy, favorite memory. I mean, 29 plus years. Favorite memory. A lot of my time here was spent in the 8th grade. A lot of Washington, D.C. trips. I will miss being on those. D.C. is an opportunity for my students and all of my teacher friends to kind of just be together outside of the school walls, learning and just having a great time away from school. Memory, oh boy, I remember being down here. This is where I started. I'm ending my career in room 204. I started my career here in room 204. So that is definitely a great memory. And things that I'm gonna miss the most. Well, obviously, my very best friends are here. So you've got, I mean, everybody who I've worked with, they're amazing. And the students. Now I'm gonna get upset. The students are amazing. You make me feel young. You make me feel happy. And I love when I see it happen and I see it going on inside of you and you start doing what you need to be doing and what you're meant to be doing. That fulfills me. But all things come to an end, so peace out.
Goodbye, Mrs. Smith.
Goodbye, Kathy Smith. Love ya. Mwah!
We're gonna miss you, Mrs. Smith. My favorite. I love you forever, and I will miss you so, so much. I'll miss teaching with you, and I will definitely miss dancing down the hallway with you.
Goodbye, Mrs. Smith. Have the best time in your retirement. I'm just a wee bit jealous and hope to join you soon.
Goodbye, Kathy Smith. We will miss you so much. You know we love you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. I'll miss you.
Hi, Miss Smith.
I'm gonna miss you, Mrs. Smith.
Bye, Mrs. Smith.
Bye.
Good luck, Mrs. Smith.
I will miss you so much, Kathy. All the best. I'll miss you. Bye.
Mrs. Smith, goodbye. We're gonna miss you. If you want to come back and sub, please do. Okay, we need you.